Some areas have a very high risk of natural disasters. For example, cities next to volcanoes or with lots and lots of earthquakes. Judge, the opposition is living in a world where every time a volcano or earthquake strikes, they do not have enough time to avoid, stuck in dangerous situations, risking their own lives. I'm doing A definitions, B setups, C presented two arguments, B practical propose. Before I go into my arguments, I like to define choosing motion. This house believes that the government should move citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks. By very high natural disaster risks, this means places prone to frequent and severe natural disasters such as earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, tsunamis, wildfires, etc. Very high denotes an extreme level of risk, suggesting that the likelihood and severity of natural disasters in these areas are particularly significant. To give a brief characterization, in propositions world, fewer citizens are involved with natural disasters and decrease the possibility of danger. However, in oppositions world, citizens are in danger because they are not moving away from these dangerous sites. Our status quo is that many lives are at risk because people are living too close to the natural disasters that are occurring. Our team's criteria is the effectiveness in reducing the risk of harm to citizens and property while promoting social equity, community engagement, and environmental sustainability. Under the stance of taking governmental action to relocate residents and the residency from regions with exceptionally high probabilities of natural disasters to mitigate risk and ensure safety, I, as Prime Minister, will be presenting our first and second argument, and our Honorable Deputy Prime Minister will present our third. Now let's present our first argument, which is saving lives. Judge, the most compelling reason for managed retreat is protection of human life. Relocating communities away from high-risk areas reduces the risk of fatalities and injuries caused by natural disasters. Moving citizens in their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risk can directly prevent loss of life. In regions prone to events like earthquakes, tsunamis, or hurricanes, the potential for casualties is heightened. By relocating communities to safer areas, governments can reduce the risk of fatalities and injuries that occur during such disasters. Certain democratic groups, such as elderly elderly children and individuals with disabilities, are particularly vulnerable during natural disasters. Managed retreat allows for the relocation of these vulnerable populations to safer areas where they can be better protected and have access to necessary resources and support systems in the event of a danger. This is important, as saving lives is crucial in the context of relocating citizens from high-risk natural disaster areas, as it provides prioritized human safety and reduces the devastating impact of disasters on communities. Before I move on to my second argument, I'll just take any POIs. Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing that there is none, I'll like to move on to my second argument, which is reducing the economic losses. Judge, natural disasters can cause significant economic damage, destroying homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Relocation from high-risk areas can mitigate these financial impacts, which often take years to recover from and can be economically devastating for both individuals and for government. No, it's overtime. Individuals and businesses located in high-risk areas often face higher insurance premiums due to the elevated probability of property damage or loss from natural disasters. By relocating communities to safer regions, insurance costs can be reduced, easing the financial strain on residents and businesses, while also potentially lowering the burden on government-funded insurance programs. This is important, as reducing economic losses is crucial in the context of relocating citizens from high-risk natural disaster areas, as it not only safeguards individuals' financial well-being, but also elevates the burden on government resources, enabling more effective disaster preparedness and recovery measures. Josh, what have I told you in my speech? I have firstly defined today's debate, and then presented our team setup, gave you a team split under the stance of taking governmental action to relocate residents and the residencies from regions with exceptionally high probabilities of natural disaster to mitigate risk and ensure safety. And he gave out our two arguments being saving lives and reducing economic losses, which is why I'm never been more proud to propose. Thank you.
Just imagine a world where people are having many different harms, such as being suffered or having injured, having much more injuries than usual, having lack of supplies, and all these different things that we will soon explain. So we need to convince you, Josh, that moving just because of the threat of natural disasters is not worth it. It will cost money and toll, and even if it does succeed, would have extreme harms. So the three arguments we will present today is conflicts of overpopulation, too many places with natural risks, and inefficiency. And also we are the status quo. So first of all, let's do some refutations. They said that areas have many natural disasters and that people won't have time to prepare to live. However, many people survive. Look at the status quo. Also, you admitted that many regions have these natural disasters, which will be very helpful for outside in a while. Just you wait. So living also they said that living too close to natural disasters can cause harm. However, did you think of the cost of moving thousands of people across regions or possibly countries, spending this over something that could not even happen? It's a chance. Also, they said that they will save lives. However, many people have storm bunkers and hideouts below their house. And only some natural disasters have the strength to kill people. For example, only one type of volcano spews out lava and shoots it out. Most volcanoes, lavas flow down slowly, giving people enough time to escape. And even if we do save lives, you might save lives in the short term, but we save much more lives in the long term. So how? Well, while site population might save few people in the short term, we save many more people from the different harms that could happen if whatever pre-evacuations thing they say is true, which could lead to deaths like suffering, uh, injuries like suffering, lack of supplies, and many different harms that we will soon fully explain. So going on to our argument, which is conflicts of overpopulation. So injuries, suffering, lack of provisions, job loss, disease spread, etc. All of these things can happen. People can suffer due to the fact that there are so many people in an evacuation center. You'll have to stay close together, not in one room, but within the same center. Also, there's going to be a high risk of severe starvation because the contamination of ashfall and limitation. Also, there's going to be a job loss for some people since people are already taking the job. It'll be much easier for people to die due to the rapid spread of viruses and assassination, injuries, and sometimes deaths. And furthermore, it's going to be very hard to catch the culprit due to the overpopulation. And this is most likely to happen because of the fact that people need to live in evacuation centers for a long time. And some important conflicts are that, first of all, pollution, due to longer driving time and overpopulation, the amount of CO2 and
Why?
litter will double, decline, and the location or region will become a bad place to live, including car crashes or different types of places. And stress because of the harsh living environment. This is important because these conflicts are happening due to the people coming early, which is
Last
pre-evacuation.
chance.
Yes?
It might take a lot of time, but isn't it better than people having millions of people dying? Because you said that there are many natural disasters.
Okay, we're going to go on to that point right now. So first of all, too many places with natural risks. We're going to explain the impact of your period right now. So if you want to move all people into who are in high danger zones, such as forest fires, the ring of fire, tectonic plates, cyclones, hurricanes, tornadoes, typhoons, and almost all of America, Canada, Hawaii, Japan, and almost all of those other countries will become evacuated. So 3 questions. Let's tackle each one, providing harms for site population and benefits for us. So what are you going to do with them? First of all, so, what are you going to do with those people? Side pop will have no choice but to move all these people into marginal, undangerous areas, causing overpopulation, which I've already explained, leading to many different various harms. These include injury, suffering, lack of provisions, and all the things we already mentioned. What are you going to do with all that unoccupied land? And with all that unoccupied land, the nature of those lands will be restored, destroyed by natural causes, restored and over again. But what we are going to do with this, what are they going to do with this land? Nothing. While we use it for our products and human thriving, Thai population does not use any of this land to do anything. What are the consequences? Well, to the impact. Well, people who are moved are impacted because they will have harms that even though they have successfully moved, and the health issues that can happen outweigh the threat of the natural disasters. And also, they said that and also, people who already lived in that land will also be impacted because people who just barge into the land and there will be lack of houses and materials and all the supplies. And because countries are actually most likely to and because countries are likely to want to help their own country, but then a bunch of other people come in, then it's not likely that they want to provide these more people with other products, with more high quality products that they give to their own citizens. And for these reasons, we believe that opposition takes this debate home. Thank you.
At the DPM, I would like to make sure I get these 3 things done in my debate, being A, rebuttals, B, rebutting, and C, presenting our third and final argument for this debate. But before we do that, I would like to mention our criteria. And the criteria for the evaluating motion, this house believes that the government should move citizens and their homes away from the areas with very high natural disaster risks, is the effectiveness in reducing the risk of harm to citizens and property while promoting social equity, community engagement, and environmental sustainability. Now with that in mind, I'll move on to the rebuttals from the previous speaker. So one of the things they said was, however, many people survived. Judge, they basically contradicted themselves before even getting to their first argument because they proved that they would rather risk the death of other citizens because they talked about however many people survived. And then they're not trying to find another solution to avoid the stance and too many people protected time and too many people with not and then they talked about there are too many places with natural disasters and they talked about how it might take a lot of time but isn't better than having millions of people. Yeah, and then they said too many places with natural disasters. So that might take a lot of time, but isn't that better than having millions of people dying? Because you said that there are many places with natural disasters, and this was our POI, and the opposing team speaker said that they'll explain, but they didn't, so I hope the next speaker at least does it. Okay, moving on to rebuilding to our first argument presented today, being saving lives. Relocating citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks directly correlates with saving lives. By mitigating immediate danger during catastrophic events and enhancing long-term resilience, the proactive approach prioritizes the safety and well-being of affected populations, moving communities out of flood-prone or earthquake-prone regions, reduce the risk of fatalities and injuries associated with natural hazards, while also minimizing the need for repeated infrastructure rebuilding in the disaster-stricken areas. Ultimately, by strategically relocating citizens to safer zones, governments can significantly reduce the loss of life and prevent unnecessary human suffering during natural disasters. Now, moving on to rebuilding to our second argument, reducing economic losses. Moving citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks directly contributes to reducing economic losses. By mitigating property damage and infrastructure repair costs associated with catastrophic events, governments can save resources and minimize financial strain on affected communities. Additionally, relocating citizens to safer areas helps to maintain economic stability and resilience, preventing prolonged displacement and disruption to local economies. Now, moving on to our final and third argument, enhanced emergency responses. Enhanced emergency responses closely linked to the motion as relocating citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks can lead to more effective and efficient emergency management. By moving communities to safer areas, governments reduce the need for large-scale rescue operations and emergency assistance during catastrophic events. This allows emergency responders to allocate resources more strategically, focus on areas with the greatest need and minimizing response times. Additionally, relocating citizens away from high-risk zones reduces the likelihood of individuals being trapped or stranded in hazardous conditions, facilitating safer and more coordinated evacuation efforts. Overall, relocating citizens and their homes away from high-risk areas enhances emergency response capabilities, ultimately saving lives and reducing the impact of natural disasters on affected communities. And Judge, before I end my speech, I would also like to say that I have done the three things that I promised to do in this debate, which were A, rebuttals, B, rebutting, and C, presenting our third and final argument for this debate. And for these reasons, I've never been prouder to propose. Thank you.
Judge, their whole premise was based on the fact that their side is safer. Right? That's the one of the main thing. That's like the main thing the previous speaker said. So their side is safer. But however, I'd like to rebut this by saying this is false. They ignore everything our LO said about health issues, lack of materials and supplies, and the fact that the people in the regular land will not like it if people just like barge into their land, right? They will not like it. So the government in that region or area or country won't provide them with the care they would provide them with their own citizens, right? And because of this, they wouldn't really be safe because they will be living together in bunched up house that isn't even a good quality. And this is most likely to get you sickness, as the first speaker did mention that they ignored, because they're bunched up together. They're like it's likely disease will happen. It's an easy target if there was a war happening because all the people are in that small area, right? There's also food issues because everyone is there and there's the food there is not gonna be like an infinity, right? They're gonna run out of food and they have to go out. But if you're scared of natural disasters, you're gonna stay in there forever, but there's gonna be a lack of food because of the consistent population coming over to the region. No, thank you. Moving on to the last argument of a case, which is about inefficiency. Usually, the whole point of moving people to places with low risk of natural disasters to put them out of range of a natural disaster, saving them from destruction, right? This motion states high risk specifically. This includes regions that have volcanoes and countries in the ring of fire. And where else? We would like to argue that this is very inefficient, right? Some characterization. I would like to characterize moving. It needs effort, right? It needs money, and it needs all sorts of things. And it's not worth it to do this just because people can predict some kind of areas destruction that can easily be evacuated when this happens, which is more accurate and can save you money and time. The case of this prediction actually working is actually so low because you can't know for 100% accuracy whether yes.
So we are not only moving everyone to one place, we're instead spreading people out to different places that have less risk of natural disasters.
Yes, you're spreading people out to certain areas where it's more bunched up than if people were in the entire 280 countries, right? Which makes it easier for natural diseases and all the things we said. So moving on, why is this inefficient? Because of two reasons. First of all the needs that you need for moving and stuff. So people need money, effort, and a place to move, right? And some people cannot afford these. And what happens if you run out of those places to move? Will you just bunch them together, which includes more risk of disease, lack of food, and lack of supplies, right? And even if the government can help pay for it and help with the effort, they cannot help the population of the entire city and much less a country, for example, Japan. And my second reason is that there's a small amount of predictable disasters. Can you predict where next year's hurricane will strike? Even if there's a high chance, you never know for sure. It could be a waste of money and tools just to move because this could happen. It will be a waste. And this is especially a big damage for the poor because they would be thinking, oh wait, this is gonna happen and move, but it sometimes won't. So it'll be a big waste, and the poor people just lose money with no benefits that could happen for them. This is why evacuation, when this happens, is much more practical and beneficial than pre-evacuation, just because it could happen. Actually, evacuation is very safe, and there's a small chance that anyone could get hurt. Also, the only solid evidence that can back up the point about pre-evacuation is volcanoes, and such that you can actually see and that you can actually predict. Which volcanoes you cannot predict when it will actually like explode, but the only things that you can actually kind of predict is things that you can see. And even if it worked, why would it be counterproductive? Two reasons. First of all, you're putting bunches of people in different places, right? They're all bunched up, and even a low chance of natural disasters can easily destroy many people at once it happens, which it will, because there's a chance. My second reason is that what will they do if natural disaster happens in an area where people are evacuated to? Their choices will be overpopulating the other areas with low risk or moving back to the home of the country. Why is this important? Because it saves money and time, and the fact that only rich people can risk this because the gap because they're making the gap between the rich and the poor bigger. And so proud to post. Thank you for listening.
Just before I move on to my points, I'd like to point out how the opposing team has answered our team's POI by literally agreeing to our question, proving to us that they did not take today's debate home. And with that, our team has presented our three arguments: saving lives, reducing economic losses, and lastly, enhance emergency responses. And the opposing team has also proposed their arguments: overpopulation, too many places, and lastly, risks. With these arguments in mind, I'll be identifying the main clashes found in today's motion. The first clash of mind in today's debate is which world is able to keep a wealthy and safe society. Our team has presented our first argument, saving lives, and the opposing team has presented their first argument, overpopulation. Our team's argument was briefly about how our world is able to ensure safety amongst the citizens. And the opposing team's argument was briefly about how a crowded people would be left on the same step as a city or village. And Judge, our team agrees that there will be an enormous amount of people stuck in a place. But isn't this why the government builds apartments? Apartments are ones that are able to hold several families at once. I hope that the next speaker will be able to prove to us why this point does not stand. Our team successfully completed its first clash home because we were very successful in drawing an image of what our team's world looks like. Judge, do you think that natural disasters are safe? Now, obviously no. The definition of natural disasters is literally an event that causes great damage and event loss to life. Our team is not only able to ensure the safety of these people, but can make sure that there are enough places for these citizens. I would also like to point out how natural disasters often bring secondary health risks, including waterborne disease from flooding, respiratory issues from wildfire smoke, or injuries from debris and collapsed structures. And when we follow this motion, we are able to move away from high risk, yes.
Don't you think I'm sorry. Don't you think that the broken country is actually less important than the lives of the people, which is supported by our first argument?
This is just another reasoning where the opposing team literally does not listen to my speech. I have clearly stated that our team finds that the safety of the citizens is most important in today's debate, proving to us that the opposing team's POI literally does not stand. Our team is successfully taking today's second classroom because we are able to prove to you why our team's role has more benefits. Judge, do you think that health is the only variable that natural disasters cause? Obviously not. Natural disasters are the most common cause of why buildings collapse or trees fall down. But then we need to remember that this action follows with another effect. It is that someone would have to make sure that this place is all cleaned up and the buildings are back up to normal. Now, this is what causes enormous amounts of money. Judge, in today's status quo, even repairing a car costs up to $2,000. Then how much would rebuilding an entire building cost? It would obviously cost more than just repairing a car. But the opposing team somehow thinks that our society would be able to successfully give out over all of these costs. Not only that, people who get in danger would also have the need to use plenty of money to make sure that their health is back to normal. And this is why our team has successfully taken today's second class vote. The last clash behind today's motion is which world is more likely. Our team has presented our last argument, enhanced emergency responses, and the opposing team has given out their second argument, too many places. Our team's argument was briefly about how the accessibility of emergency responses is very low when there are dangerous votes going on. And the opposing team's argument was briefly about how there are way too many people to indicate for this motion to stand. But Judge, our team strongly believes that this point has the literal same impact and harm as their first argument, proving to us that they were unable to make another argument and give us reasonings to why they take this debate home. Our team is successfully taking today's last clash home because our team has reality. Judge, do you think that places next to mountains, next to oceans, or besides volcanoes would have a high chance of getting emergency access? Obviously not. In Seoul, we are able to call 119, and they would come within 5 minutes. But let's look at places like Busan. Although there may be emergency access stations, it would obviously take longer for them to reach out to these regions. In fact, there would not be as many stations as we are able to find in cities. Relocating residents from high-risk areas also reduces the potential risk faced by first responders. By minimizing the need of risky rescue operations in hazardous environments, emergency personnel can focus on their duties without compromising their safety. But Judge, the opposing team somehow would like to interact about this point. They talk about how there are too many places with natural disasters. But our team has clearly rebutted to this point by proving to you how our team finds the safety of citizens much more important in the way of making this type of action. And for these reasonings, our team has taken all 3 classes home and today's debate home. And for these reasonings, I was never proud to propose. Thank you.
Judge, the proposition team is completely misunderstanding our case and not refuting our first argument. So first of all, going into our refutation of their argument. Of their arguments. First of all, they said something about infrastructure broken and their country's like properties or structures being broken. But we agree that the country itself might be a problem. But this is an impact that will occur on their side too, since the people that since the country that have the people pre-evacuated will eventually get dismantled too. And first of all, another rebuttal is that they said that in their side they can save lives more than our side. But we are more likely to save lives since the people are going to evacuate after getting the evacuation alarm. This is a very great timing because note that the countries within the areas of high risk, moving is a bad logic because the natural disaster might not happen for decades and even centuries. Let's take volcanoes for example. Like volcanoes, they often take a long time to erupt. So like, for example, like 50 years or like 100 years. So this is why moving pre-evacuating is unnecessary and the process is just hard and it is moving for like a thing that happens in once in like two decades or something. And next, on the other rebuttal, that they said that moving the country is better than millions of people dying. But as we said, in our country, in our world, people don't die because time is shorter on our side. What do I mean? Because if people evacuate after hearing the evacuation alarm, then they keep keep the time that they're in the evacuation center, even though it is packed, it is still temporary and it is still shorter than the proposition side, since they have to stay in there for years and years if the volcano or the natural disaster doesn't happen. And they said that the country and the people die in our world. But as we keep on explaining, no, because first of all, in both sides of evacuation ways, like in their side pre-evacuation and in our side evacuation, like we need to still pay the fine for the broken structure to like make a new country or to like remodel the things that got dismantled during the natural disaster. So financial cannot be a thing because it is a symmetrical impact. But what I'm trying to say is about the death. So like as we keep on saying and as we keep on repeating, the chances of dying in a very temporary time, even if they're packed like evacuation center, is very low in their side because they have a longer time, which as we said in our first argument, which they completely ignored: injury, suffering, lack of provisions, and job loss, and diseases spread, and also the contamination can actually lead to more people dying. So onto my clash. Which side is a better side for people to live? So first of all, we have one detail that we give to support that we won this clash, which is that we have less risks in centers, which we provided in the first argument, and stress due to an unnecessary change. Because like for example, if you're living in a house for like 5 years and like you like that house very much, but then if you go into a center for like another 5 years, that's going to be stressful because you're packed with a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of pollution, and the center is not going to, it's not even a center, it's like a place, the location is not going to be a place for people to live safely. So this is why, Judge, that in our world opposition, that we have successfully demolished other cases and arguments, and this is why we take the clash of which side people are going to die more, and which side has a more necessary change, and which side has a bigger and positive impact. Thank you.
Judge, please note that even though we repeated the point about how they ignored our point on the dangers of people all bunching together, even when we said it, they ignored it and disregarded it. Also note that they do not explain the exclusive benefits of pre-evacuation and cannot be achieved by evacuation. What is the exclusive benefit? We give you many harms on their side, but they do not give us any exclusive benefits, further proving our win. So first of all, I'd like to do some weighing of this debate. So we provided many different harms, and they disregarded and continue on about how they should save lives, while we keep repeating ourselves with the fact that we save even more lives. And so we show you that our benefits are far greater than theirs, and that our harms are much less severe than the harms that they must go through. And also we would like to bite the bullet of their claims. And even if these people are safe, which is the only benefit they provide, we save many more people rather than saving less people faster. And side proposition says that they want to save every soul possible. So why not just side with us, who have a better chance to save more people, if that's what you want? And I'm going on to my best case, worst case. Their best case in which they save lives from these regions that are at natural disaster risking, while our worst, which is about like saving more souls from these regions and has already had a greater impact than their best case. Therefore, we already proved that our impacts are far greater than side propositions. With that cleared up, let's show why we want this debate. First of all, we need to prove the burden, the win clashes, and show which impacts and actors lean toward our side. So we proved our burden, even if side proposition elevated it, which is not true. Because we proved all of our claims with mechanisms, proved side opposition wrong with alternatives and reason, and even managed to engage highly towards them in this debate rather than vice versa, we managed to prove our burden. Second, we proved our clashes to win by our third speaker whip, showing that we win these clashes. And lastly, we already cleared up the fact that all these actors lean toward our side for more lives, and the impacts are, as already noted, leaning toward us because we have more exclusive benefits, as already noted, and the harms are more toward them, as we have again already noted several times, even though they have not listened. And Also, they said that sad proposition also keeps on stating that it's better to save lives even if it takes a lot of time. However, you disregard all the impacts we provide, along with the fact that doing all that moving will cost millions and take years to succeed. How do you plan to save lives lives, even if it's just like a hundred people, by wasting millions of dollars, wasting years and years, and then giving these people harms beyond the harms of natural diseases? We will save thousands and millions of people. Well, while side proposition can only manage to save a few by wasting even more harm products than we can even use in our world. And for these reasons, we think that side opposition should take this debate home. Thank you.
Judge, our team stands at the podium to prove to you why the opposing team statements literally do not stand here to summarize the debate and approve the motion. This House believes that the government should move citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks. Stands. Our team criteria for the evaluating motion is that this House believes that the government should move citizens and their homes away from areas with very high natural disaster risks. Is the effectiveness in reducing the risk of harm to citizens and property while promoting social equity, community engagement, and environmental sustainability. We presented 3 arguments to support our criteria, being argument 1, saving lives, argument 2, reducing economic losses, and argument 3, enhanced emergency responses. In contrast, the opposing team proposed 3 arguments to support their criteria without having a criteria. So we really don't have to recap their arguments. And however, we effectively rebutted these points demonstrated by demonstrating that our criteria encompass broader considerations, including economic sustainability, social justice, and environmental protection. In our world, citizens are relocated away from high-risk areas, leading to reduced harm from natural disasters, greater social equity, and enhanced community resilience. In contrast, the opposition's world fails to address the long-term impacts of relocation on vulnerable communities and overlooks the importance of environmental sustainability. Moreover, our world fosters social equity and justice by considering the needs of vulnerable populations. By relocating individuals from high-risk areas, particularly those from marginalized communities or low-income backgrounds, we mitigate the disproportionate impact of natural disasters on these groups. This approach promotes fairness, inclusivity, and solidarity within society, ensuring that no one is left behind in the face of environmental hazards. Furthermore, in our world, community engagement and consent are paramount. Governments actively involve affected communities in the design-making process, ensuring transparency, accountability, and mutual respect. This collaborative approach fosters trust, cooperation, and resilience, empowering citizens to participate in shaping their own futures and safeguarding their communities against future risks. Overall, our world represents a proactive and holistic approach to disaster risk reduction. By moving citizens and their homes away from high-risk areas, we create safer, more equitable, and more resilient communities. This does not only save lives and minimize economic losses, but also foster social cohesion, environmental sustainability, and long-term well-being for all. Furthermore, the opposition team failed to adequately engage with our arguments, providing reasoning for their criteria or effectively rebutting our points. Our Honorable Prime Minister gave out a POI saying we are not moving everyone to one place, but we are instead spreading people out to different places that have a lower risk. However, they literally contradicted themselves by agreeing to our POI. They keep repeating the fact that we are not engaging in their first argument, and this proves that they did not listen to our speeches because we literally engaged upon it 2 times from our Honorable Whip. Therefore, we believe that our case stands stronger in today's debate. Thank you.